That's not something you see very often these days. Don Rickles was on The Tonight Show more than 100 times. He seemed brave as he insulted Johnny Carson every night. Mindy, his daughter, just told him the shocking truth. Behind the scenes, Carson scared her dad a lot. He practiced his jokes alone before every show because he was afraid of going too far. There was something that broke Rickles' heart after Carson left in 1992. Mindy says that her dad kept a secret that hurt him. 25 years. You won't believe what Carson did to the man who made a lot of people laugh. In Jackson Heights, Queens, on May 8, 1926, two immigrant parents were trying to make something out of nothing. They lived in a small room that always felt thick with hope. That's where Don Rickles was born. Max, his father, was from Lithuania, and Etta, his mother, was from Austria. Each of their roots was a quiet reflection of the past. Both of them had gotten away. It wasn't fancy, and everyone in the neighborhood treated each other like family. During the Great Depression, Don saw his folks work hard as he grew up. They encouraged him to think big even though they didn't have much. His mother pushed him to do better all the time. But he always felt uneasy on the inside, like he didn't quite fit in with the other kids. At the same time, his parents always supported him when he wanted to act. That early mix of love, stress, and tight living made the boy who he is today. Who really wanted to get out of Queens and into something bigger. During World War II, young men all over the country were called to serve in the military, and Don joined them. He joined the U.S. Navy in 1944 and soon found himself working as a seaman first class on the USS Cyrene. It was a submarine helper in the Pacific that helped motor torpedo boats. It was really hot. The nights were rough. Attacks were always a possibility. But Don found ways to get through it. During long waits, he would make jokes for his shipmates and turn them into short comic shows. Those times made him smarter. He didn't even notice it. In New Guinea, the late days are running into each other. He learned to be disciplined and tough in the Navy, and he was told that humor could work anywhere. He would say that those lessons stuck with him for years, and they helped him become the tough guy that people loved on stage. He tried to live the life his father wanted for him when he got home in 1946. He went from door to door and tried to persuade people to buy life insurance for a short time. But the work made him tired. It was awful for him because he couldn't make sales, and each bad pitch hurt him. His mom could tell when he was trying too hard to smile. She pushed him again, this time in the direction of the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Thankfully and nervously, he signed up. He later said that the job with the insurance company was terrible and that those months made him feel empty. His first taste of being in charge of his life came when he left it behind. In high school, he became interested in acting. Jones Robards and Bancroft both walked those halls. Grace Kelly went through the same rooms over and over. Don read scripts, learned timing, worked on his voice, and tried to fit in. He also hoped to get big parts. But it seemed like more doors closed as he tried out. The casting directors kept saying the same things over and over. Not the right look, not good enough to be a main man, and not what we need right now. He was badly hurt by something said during an audition. It stuck with him that someone had said he wasn't a good main man. He felt hurt every time he was turned down, and it made him want acceptance even more. Even back then, he had no idea that the timing and presence he was learning would help him become famous for his comedy. Early scars never fully healed, and they followed him into the public eye. It became more important for him to be accepted, especially when he went on The Tonight Show. Johnny Carson was the key to becoming famous all over the country. Someone could become a big star if Carson laughed at them once. Don really wanted that nod. He said that kept Don on edge one time. Loved Carson, but it hurt him when he thought Carson wasn't giving him the credit he deserved. During his rise, that stress stayed with him. Don had a hard time making it in show business before he got famous on The Tonight Show. In the 1950s, he went from New York to Los Angeles to look for work as an actor. But casting directors kept turning him down, and his anger led him to go to nightclubs. In the beginning of stand-up, jokes were written down and read aloud. Then something strange happened. An angry person yelled at him one night, so Don quickly insulted the person. People in the crowd laughed out loud. At that moment, his life changed. He leaned into it and let the comments become the act. By the late 1950s, he was known for having a sharp tongue, making quick comebacks, and attacking without fear. He was different from everyone else because he had found something real and raw. His style quickly turned into a balance. He made fun of everyone and everything. He spoke to Jewish people, Italians, Irish people, and even his own mother. He made fun of everyone the same. And in some way, that brought everyone in the room together. Anytime, something could have gone wrong. The crowd could have turned against him with just one bad line. But Don knew in his heart how far to push. How to use heat to ease the pain. Behind the eyes. Because of that balance, he was a pioneer who paved the way for comics who later used risky humor. People called him Mr. Warmth, and the name stuck because it showed how funny he was. He tore everyone apart on stage. Off stage, though, he was kind and honest, especially with his family. His daughter Mindy often talked about how kind he was and how close he was to her. People could tell the difference. They knew there was a kind man behind the loud voice and mean comments. The two sides kept people coming back. His job in bars and casinos took him all over the world, but Las Vegas was his favorite place. He would have lost everything if he had taken that risk. He made a joke about Frank Sinatra, who was known for hanging out with bad people. Said that Sinatra was a heavyweight one night. Sinatra laughed out loud instead of being hurt. He turned out to be one of Don's biggest fans. Don's job became safer and more respected when Sinatra backed it. That other artists want to have. Still, never got away from the stress of having to depend on powerful people. Carson was still the most important. Being invited to The Tonight Show meant that things were stable. Being shut out meant trouble. Don always knew this before he went on stage. He got ready as if every show would decide his future. He really wanted Carson to like him, which made those times feel heavy, but the payoff was huge. Those looks helped him get through times when nothing else seemed certain. In the late 1950s, finally got to Hollywood. Run Silent Run Deep, which came out in 1958, was his first big break in movies. In a story set in a submarine, the fact that he looked older than 32 made him even more interesting. In the movie, Ruby, he played a sailor who made scenes with Clark Gable and Burt Lancaster more fun. While not a huge hit, the movie opened a door for Don after years of working hard in bars. People finally got to see him on TV. Then 1963 came along and things were very different. Roger Corman put him in the role of X, the guy with the X-ray eyes. The movie was a scary sci-fi thriller that was shot in just 3 weeks and cost only $300,000. Don played Crane, a circus barker who used Ray Milland's character to get what he wanted. It was creepy and dark. And a long way from Don's funny world. The movie got the Silver Spaceship Award in Italy and became a cult favorite. A lot of people were shocked by how good Don was in a serious part. He showed that he wasn't just a trash comic and that he could hold his own. Hello Dummy, his live record, came out in 1968. The recording was made at a show in Las Vegas at the Sahara Hotel and Casino. It was on for about 35 minutes and caught him at full strength. On the Billboard 200, the record got to number 54. For a comedy song, that was a big deal. It proved that his voice was usable in places other than bars and gambling. Years went by, and in 2025, Hello Dummy was added to the National Recording Registry by the Library of Congress. It was kept as a piece of history and shows how his humor changed society. The Don Rickles Show started on ABC that same year. It was only 17 shows long, or 1 season. After that, it was gone and was replaced by Let's Agree on Something. Don did sketch comedy, singing numbers, and quick insults all at the same time. But for some reason, people never got into the show. He was shocked when it was canceled. It made him think of. It only took a blink for TV to give and take. Once more, I felt insecure and didn't know what the future held. So he went back to The Tonight Show, the place that had always helped him feel grounded. Under Carson's watchful eye, he found steady publicity and plenty of money. A lot of people watched every time he was on. The way they talked to each other felt exciting. Those events turned into more than just chances to get jobs. Don Rickles became known as Mr. Warmth because he kept doing brave things. That made him leave the bar scene and go after something bigger. It began slowly and then all at once. Martin Scorsese cast him in Casino in 1995 and gave him the role of Billy Sherbert, a quiet casino manager who had to make it through the chaos of Las Vegas. Even though Rickles only had 10 words, he made people talk about him after the movie was over. He stole scenes with a dry spark that never went away, even though he was 69 years old. The movie made more than $116 million. He even made fun of Quentin Tarantino while they were filming. The jokes were so funny that Tarantino turned red and laughed like a child who got caught doing something silly. And Rickles had shown a different side of himself in 1970s Kelly's Heroes. As a tank driver, he played crap game and made jokes when war would normally make everyone quiet. The movie became a cult favorite thanks to its funny and exciting plot. Over time, these jobs changed how people saw Rickles. He wasn't just the insult comedian at the bar anymore. He became a regular in Hollywood, someone directors turned to when they needed a sharp but honest personality that could hold a scene without any work on their part. Then something else took place. When Rickles moved into animation, he found a whole new group of fans ready for him. He did the role of Mr. Potato Head in Toy Story in 1995. As the first fully computer-drawn movie, it made more than $373 million around the world. In an instant, kids who had never seen him make fun of someone on stage fell in love with him. The man kept coming back for more movies, even when he was in his 80s. He recorded lines just a few weeks before he died in 2017. Mindy, his daughter, wrote an article for the Library of Congress about this. She said that the part meant a lot to her father. For him, it was important because it linked him to her and their family history. Even when he was tired and sick, he still wanted to go into the studio and record something for the role. Pixar used old recordings of his voice to keep it fresh in Toy Story 4 after he died. It felt like an honor. Not only did the figure have Rickles' sense of humor, but also his heart and loyalty. In his last years, Mindy said, it gave him a reason to live and something he was glad to leave behind. The name Mr. Warmth was always taken as a joke, but it did say something true about Rickles. His trash comedy didn't hold back. Still, everyone who met him outside of shows said how nice and giving he was. His work was put together and kept safe at the National Comedy Center in New York. For the kids of today, his best friends, like Frank Sinatra and Bob Newhart, were happy to attack him at the many comedy roasts that were held over the years, even though he usually made fun of them more. Still, every roast finished with love and respect, never anger. Everything held together because Rickles was two different people at the same time. Offstage, he could be mean, but when the lights went out, he could be nice. Almost everyone in the entertainment business said the same thing about him after he died. They said the name was Mr. Warmth. It fit him better than anyone knew at the time. He brought that friendliness to places that a lot of his fans had never heard of. Rickles gave to Jewish causes for many years. The Barbara and Don Rickles Gymnasium at Sinai Temple in Los Angeles is one of the things he helped pay for. His friends and co-workers knew how kind he was, but fans were often shocked. They were used to seeing him insult strangers, not help people who needed him by giving his time and money. But that was the real man. He was kind to others. Had nothing to do with getting attention. Because he cared, which he didn't show much on stage. He was more interesting because of this difference. The smart comedian was fun to watch, and the gentleman helped communities without drawing attention to himself. The part of Rickles' life that showed the most was his friendship with Johnny Carson. Rickles went on The Tonight Show for the first time in 1965 and said, "Hello, dummy," to Carson. The room was shocked, and that was the start of something that lasted for almost 30 years. Afterward, he showed up more than 100 times, which was one of the most of any guest during Carson's time. Many people know Rickles now because of those meetings. When they were next to Carson, some acts played it safe, but Rickles didn't. People loved not knowing what he would say next because he liked being unpredictable. It was only him who could insult Carson in front of millions of people and still get called back. Whenever. Since Rickles showed up more than 100 times, that number shows how powerful he was and how much Carson trusted him. When they were on TV, it felt crazy and almost dangerous. Rickles showed up on set without being asked. He would sometimes break things on Carson's desk and then make jokes about Carson's head, his marriages, or his power. In 1983, Rickles said to Carson, "If I had Carson's hairline, I'd wear a hat." This was a moment never forgotten. Carson always laughed along, and he would join in the chaos if it made the joke better. This wasn't planned in any way. Rickles talked over other guests. Just by walking onto the stage, he changed the mood of whole parts of the show. These events are now part of the past of talk shows. They had a big impact on how late-night humor is done now. People thought Rickles didn't have any fears. They had seen him make fun of Carson every week. Behind the scenes, though, Rickles was always afraid of going too far. This was said by Mindy Rickles in an interview in 2023. She said that her dad looked up to Carson more than anyone else on TV. Before going on The Tonight Show, he went over his insults in his head and tested to see how far he could take a joke without making the host mad. He even said that he was really scared before his first show. Not seen by the camera, he called Carson the boss. And often stopped by after shows to make sure everything was okay. The irony was always there. He looked brave on air. But behind closed doors, he knew Carson had the power to cut him off from millions of watchers with just one move. Carson helped Rickles get things done and was his friend. Carson not only let Rickles' success go in a big way, but he also decided how long that door would stay open. His praise led to more shows. One bad night could make everything fall apart. It became clear of this when Carson left in 1992. Rickles thought Carson told him he would have a part in future projects. Rickles felt cheated when that promise was broken. That hurt him for a long time. Even though it looked good on TV, their relationship was based on unspoken rules and the goals of the show. Carson only had to make one choice to get rid of Rickles from people's living rooms across America. Their story showed how friendship and power can work together in fun. They often live together in confusing ways that make it hard to separate them. Mindy Rickles watched her father deal with his public image and his inner fears as she grew up. She trained to be an actress and a voice actor, and she spent her childhood going to Tonight Show tapings and red carpet events. She saw both the man and the story at the same time. In her book for the Library of Congress, she talked about both sides. She talked about a father who was warm, funny, and caring, but who also needed approval from important people. It changed the way he felt at home. He could make a lot of people laugh until they cried, but he still cared about what the few people who really mattered to him thought. More than being famous ever did. Johnny Carson and Frank Sinatra were the only two men who could really make Rickles doubt himself. Mindy remembered how well her dad got along with most people. Carson, on the other hand, he wanted to make him laugh every time. When Sinatra walked into a room, Rickles' jokes were on the edge of being funny and dangerous. At one point, he told Sinatra and his tough-looking group to go home and hit someone. When everyone laughed, he held his breath and calmed down. These events showed how much Rickles cared about being liked by the few people who controlled his life. He became famous because of his work, but he always wanted to be liked by the people he looked up to. Rich people like Mindy Rickles used to laugh out loud and see bright lights all the time. But she also saw how her father changed in the quiet times. She saw Don Rickles work in rooms full of people while his family was the only ones who knew about his worries. She sat next to him at the tapings of Tonight's Show for a long time before she knew why those nights were so important. And as she grew up, she realized that her dad's entertainment was based on something much weaker than anyone had thought. She wrote about how he could be loving and present at home while also trying to win over people who didn't know him very well. That surge changed him. It changed their house. Mindy felt both sides of his kindness as she grew up. Behind the quick jokes, he was insecure, but he was also warm. It was always her story that her dad changed when Johnny Carson came along. Respect a lot of people, but Carson was the best. Getting his approval meant a lot. The night before each show, Don walked around the house alone and thought of jokes to tell. He was afraid of going too far or hitting a note. Carson would shut down if that happened. He looked brave when the cameras were rolling. Mindy saw the truth, though. He looked at Carson's face more intently than the people in the room. She saw how he was trying to time every move, smile, and eye flick. She saw him watch the same scenes over and over again afterward, and she wondered if Carson liked the set or if he had let him down without realizing it. That stress never really went away. Even when Sinatra walked in, Don's sharpest jokes flew around like sparks. Carson was still the only person who could throw him off. Sinatra's acceptance was also important, and Don liked to act like he didn't fear anyone in that group. But little bits of the truth came out. Mindy remembers how happy he was that night when Sinatra's crew laughed at a line about hitting someone. He laughed with them, but she saw him let out a breath afterward. The man who made millions of people laugh still wanted some people to accept him, no matter how cocky he was. That need was stronger than fame. Over time, Don came to believe that the years he spent with Carson would lead to something permanent. He thought that he would find a place in the change when Carson left in 1992. Perhaps not as a host. They might not be a constant part of the show, but they should be thanked for their 30 years of service. While they waited for the call, NBC went on without stopping to look back. Leno took over the desk, the room filled with new people, and Don was forced to stand back and watch. In the end, his friends said he was hurt more than angry. He was hurt that the laughter he had helped create was now going on without him. It hurts that no one reached out. It hurt when the first few months went by and Carson was nowhere to be found. Sunk even deeper. The quiet got worse as the years went by. Mindy said it was a pretty calm time. They used to look at each other warmly between jokes and give each other little nods behind the scenes that meant more than words. Those movements stopped after the show was over. They never fought. They've never had a public fight. They were just floating. Don tried to stay in touch by sending short messages and calling every once in a while, but the gap stayed. That change was stronger for her father, Mindy said. Did anyone notice? He put so much of himself into that show. But when the curtain went down, it went down on him too. When Don got older, he began to talk about that wound in a more open way. Friends said that before he died in 2017 at the age of 90, he talked about how he felt abandoned by both the system and Carson. He still liked Carson a lot. That never changed, but he carried his sadness around with him like a secret weight. Mindy stated that he never stopped admiring Carson's skills, even when they were alone. But the farewell, recognition, and friendship that he missed after 1992 stayed with him. He felt bad about not having peace in quiet ways that people never saw. Mindy named this time the silent tension, was the space between what everyone else thought and how her dad really felt. Now, documentaries talk about it and show how Rickles and Carson moved apart without saying goodbye or even thank you. Don tried to make fun of it on stage, but Mindy knew that he was hurting when he did that. There was something unfinished that he never learned how to name behind every laugh. Mindy said in her talks that he never went after Carson in public. He was mean to everyone, but he never said bad things about the man who meant a lot to him. It was better for him to keep those feelings inside. He spoke well of Carson in interviews. At family events, he called him a genius. He said that Carson was the only person on live TV who could keep him in line. Mindy heard the soft sound in his voice, though. When he talked about the good old days, she could tell he was sad. She knew that her dad felt both love and loss in his heart. As the years went by, Mindy understood that her dad's relationship with Carson was based on real love and trust, which doesn't happen very often between performers. But behind that trust was a weak man who was afraid of losing the people he looked up to the most. For 60 years, her dad had made people laugh. But when the lights went out, he was still not sure if the people he trusted had really cared about him. His family was the only ones who had ever seen him that week. Mindy felt like she had to tell that story. A lot of people sent condolences when Don Rickles died on April 6, 2017. It got rough for Jimmy Kimmel on air. Samuel L. Jackson and Marlon Wayans were among the stars who remembered how he could tear a place apart. With just one line, you can still make everyone feel like they belong. Bands put flowers all over his Hollywood star. He was known as the last great standard comedian in show business. They said he was smart, had good timing, and wasn't afraid of anything. But everyone only saw the comic. A man walked off stage, and Mindy saw him. She wondered if he had made one person laugh in particular. There was an essay in the Library of Congress and a set of movies in 2023 that told his story again after he died. Together, they got more than 1 million views. Her father cared deeply about his friendships, as shown by the letters, private memories, and talks she shared. As a reminder, Carson died on January 23, 2005, at the age of 79. This was a long time ago, and neither man could explain or end the silence that had grown between them. Carson was no longer there, so Mindy's words were the only way to fully understand a relationship that was based on humor and quiet feeling. Her wish was for everyone to know, the jab master Don Rickles was more than that. This man was loyal and afraid of letting people down. His relationships were important to him even when they hurt him. She wanted everyone to know how much she loved him and how fragile he was. Because behind every mean joke and cruel insult was a talent who loved too much and was afraid of being forgotten by the people who meant the most to him.